I'm going to read you a opening dua. O Allah, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. O Allah, comfort me in my desolation in the grave. O Allah, have mercy on me by dint of the great Quran and make it my leader, light, guidance, and mercy. O Allah, make me remember whatever I forget from it. Teach me whatever part of it I do not understand. Endow me with its recitation during the hours of the day and the night, and make it an evidence for me, O Lord of the worlds. Amen. So we'll get started on that note. I'm going to give you some information about Sophia. Sophia is an educator at Al Falah Academy in Atlanta and the programs director at ISNA, having launched Teach with Tech, providing tools and resources for educators in the digital age. And I want to add here that I've worked with Sophia. I'm also a member of ISLA. I'm the vice chair, and I've worked with Sophia on many occasions. So I'm happy to have her here with us here at this session too. She spearheaded ISLA Leadership Academy, specializing in school improvement and best practices in teaching and learning. Ms. Japori holds a master's in curriculum and instruction, along with educational leadership and a bachelor's in interdisciplinary studies. She is a trainer with Islamic Speakers Bureau and previously built a training program with awareness through mosque tourism with materials implemented worldwide. She has also worked for Google, curating content for educators. With 15 years in the public, private, and international setting, she is now training educators to build frameworks for success. We are so happy to have you, Sophia, and thank you for giving us your time, taking time from your busy life and your beautiful children, and sharing with us information about technology. You may get started. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for the introduction, Patricia. We're gonna just dive right in before those beautiful children decide to interrupt. So let's see how we do. We're gonna talk about what is the butterfly effect when it comes to us as educators, and briefly look into ripple effects of the pandemic and strategies for moving forward. And then we're going to spend a lot more time discussing tools for learner motivation, and I'll highlight some resources towards the end. I realize that this is the last session in a very busy weekend for most of you. So I do want to thank you all for joining in and being with me today. And I'm going to try to kind of go a little bit through the research and keep it light, knowing that and having that in mind, and I'll have everything available for you to go through a little bit later, inshallah. So I make no claim of scientific expertise on the butterfly effect's legitimacy as a scientific theory, but as a social phenomenon, it really makes intuitive sense to me, how one thing leads to another and how small changes can lead to ripple effects in a very profound and unanticipated nature. So of course, inherently, it's unpredictable. We can't necessarily foresee that one event is going to have a mix of good or bad events, but I know that as an educator, that one act, one good deed can spawn further good acts and others by years to come. And one small change in tech can make another change and make another change. We've all been in this business long enough, a lot of us have, that we've witnessed what happens when our work has a positive impact somewhere down the line. So in essence, a lot of this is an ongoing act of faith. In a day-to-day basis, the benefits of our work may not always be evidence. And sometimes we're like, oh, that class didn't go how we hoped, or that publication isn't really attracting a lot of attention. And, we might be spinning our wheels a little bit or think we're wasting our time. But rare occasions, if we're fortunate, we get that realization that our work did allow us to make our difference, even if we're not able to see the full effects. So as we're going through this, and, I'm going to go through some of the research, I want you to think through, have you had that butterfly effect moment as yourself, as an educator, when you have taught something or initiated a new tool or technological change or any new thing that you did and you saw the effects years later, or somebody came to you and said, oh, I remember you, Sister Ann, you were my teacher back in kindergarten, and I remember when you told me this. Do you have those moments? And I would love for you guys to share your stories. So in the chat, if you have something that comes up, definitely share it with us. And I have a couple of my own, so we'll share them towards the end, depending on time. But also, if you want to type in the chat, if you are a teacher, an admin, what's your current title and position? That will also give me an idea of how much in depth and how we can kind of use this next hour so it best fits everyone's needs, to kind of get an idea of who the mix we have. So I'm going to start diving in, and if you can do that for me, that would be great. So let's look a little bit about some of the research studies of what I found. I specifically aimed to try to find research that would show me academic resilience when using technology for a mix of mainstream and at-risk students. And I looked at a variety of studies and read a lot of books. And I have some key takeaways from this. I'm going to highlight for Silicon Valley educators, specifically Silicon Valley, because their region is filled with risk-taking entrepreneurs. They have a growing inequality of incomes from within county systems. So there were a couple teachers that were identified as overwhelmingly exemplary. Their students scored through the charts, and they were trying to figure out how were those students academically resilient, in an area that has gone through so much gentrification and so much changes. For them, the biggest takeaway from all of that research was autonomy. Teacher autonomy was crucial in ways for the teachers to be able to experiment with the lessons, experiment with the software, allowing them to increase their own efficiency by managing their content and skills in ways that resonated with their students. So by allowing the teachers to really have their own mental space to grow and put their time into how they wanted to frame their lessons and use technology how they thought it would work for their students, was what really set those educators and set those students over the top. Their students tested highest in the states, but they were standouts. And not all teachers can manage full autonomy. And that's where the second takeaway from those studies were that the board vision must be aligned. Schools have to be able to provide a wide access to establish infrastructure, and they have to have a clear vision of how technology is going to affect the learning outcomes. Oftentimes, there's not a lot of alignment, and the teachers might want to do one thing and the board might want to do another. But if the vision is aligned that this is the outcome we have, there needs to be a little bit autonomy to where the teacher can say, I know that the actions I'm doing is going to lead to that outcome, or I'm hoping that this is why I'm using that. One example is I use the Amazon Alexa in my classroom and the Google Dot. And when I was first setting it up, our board members were like, you're putting that on our network and it has microphones, it's going to be listening to us, and we're reciting Quran and we're making du'as, and what are they listening to? And Google's hearing everything we're saying. The board was a little taken back originally. But when my students started using it in the class, mashallah, I have the most curious thinkers, and they would ask me questions that even would baffle me. And I think it's completely fine telling your students, I don't know, let's ask Google. And they started using it as a tool for learning. We used it as our timers. We used it for background music while we're thinking, and creative writing exercises. Google would tell them stories, and they could read an audiobook with Google, and it became a tool for their learning. And they got so excited to have it in the room that when we had a Wi-Fi issue, the students were like, oh, can I bring my hotspot? Our Google's not working. Our Google's not working, because it became that much part of their culture, having it there. And that's where we get to our research studies from 2008, 2013, and even 2021. From that period of time, I looked at quite a few different studies. There was a highly regarded one in 2008 that showed educator, I think his name is Harvey Beaker. He found that most elementary schools and secondary schools, they use the computer lab once in the week. And that lab was being used for just reference materials and word processing. So we had the technology then. Okay, this is 13 something years ago. Everyone had computer labs. Then in 2013, a Pew Research study looked at 22,000 teachers, and about 76% of them said that their students were downloading info, submitting assignments online, and revising on Google Apps. So we're looking at That was 2008 and 2013. We're doing all of that now in 2021 with Google Classroom and Google Drive and having gone through this pandemic. We've all gone through this now. But where is the commonality in all of this? So I'm going to tell you the definition of tech integration. Tech integration is the routine and transparent use of laptops, tablets, software, digital cameras, social media, internet, all aimed at curriculum and instructional goals. We already have the technology now, and now we just have to use it. We can't be scared of saying, oh, it's too much screen time. We needed to turn it down and let's have our paper and pencils now that we're back in person because it was too much screen time or it was too overwhelming to have all of this. The takeaway is technology has always been there. It's in the background. It's not some foreground. It's not some future. It is there. We need to embrace it. We need to make it work for us. And then the final study that I wanted to highlight just looked at information and communicative tech in kind of the broadest way. And I'll share this, everything so you'll have it, is that it needs to be integrated. And you need to have a variety of techniques. It can't just be of, okay, we're going to lecture today and we're turning it in, lecture, turn it in. And that's kind of where we come back to, our old school methods of passing out worksheets and workbooks. That one method doesn't work, and understanding that everyone learns in a different way is kind of where we're going to be back at on that. So we're going to examine a little bit, and I really want you to think about where are we now as educators, as Islamic schools. Are we building that space for our teachers to have autonomy? Are we giving opportunities for professional engagement with technologically minded educators? I see you guys are here, so I'm going to check that off the list for you guys. You're creating that space. Is the rest of your school establishing the conditions? Those research studies that I mentioned, those teachers expressed a strong belief that using new technology regularly in their lessons made up for securing resources for students easier. It opened up areas for higher rates of student participation. It reduced distractions, and it made managing the lessons they taught more efficient. So, I know, there's always those outliers. You'll have, we're on a lesson and they'll open a YouTube tab or they'll open something else, but it's about using technology to make it efficient, not being scared that they're going to get distracted and we need to block everything so that they can't do anything except for the one thing we need them to do. We need to give the students the space to also have the autonomy and that freedom to connect to the global world outside of them. That kind of reminds me of, what is that saying? The Abe Lincoln thought of the importance of preparation when real work begins. He said that if I had to knock down, or if I had to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 sharpening the axe, right? We can't just say, here's the lesson and we want you to do it. A lot of the times the teachers are so busy just writing out their lesson plans that they're not putting extra time into really, growing. And we need to give our students that same kind of access to those materials from around the world, to where they have interactions with videos and ed puzzles, and they're able to do Skype with somebody out in Japan when they're learning about ancient cultures. So we need to make sure that we are creating that space in our Islamic schools, so where our students can respond critically and show communicative proficiency, because they need to be able to expand their networks. And that's kind of what we're getting to next. We can't ignore the social media. We can't ignore what's outside. And more, let's kind of look inside and think, we can block it out a little bit, but we really need to focus on providing those opportunities and forging connections for our students. Our Islamic schools, let's face it, they're very embryonic. By and large, what our schools, that's kind of what they've become. They function as highly self-contained communities that manage between teaching skills and content and doing the best to make sure that they're, trying to be good Muslims and the students are safe and cared for. We have a very implicit hope that we're socializing the kids and that we're going to hatch them into the real world. But when they get there, not all of the students have had access to people beyond their embryonic little community. And we haven't built our Islamic schools to nurture the health of our students to where we know that, we can predict that they're going to be effective as soon as they walk out of our building. I mean, I know at our school, Alpha Academy, we have community mentorship programs. We have dual credit for our high schoolers. They have internships. We have guest speakers that come in and field studies and all of these extra things. But even then, most of those are also within our own community and our own members. So we need to use technology to expand the students' world. You know, not only that within our own community and resources, but really use the technology to expand their network. And that's where it's going to give not only the teachers that autonomy to grow outside of their space, but the students that autonomy as well. You know, they're going to be able to go beyond geographic boundaries and strengthen their connections because of this. I'm going to take a second before I dive in to some of our ripple effects. Patricia, is there anything in the chat that we want to highlight on yet? Okay, I'll keep going then. I'm not monitoring the chat. I'm trying to go quickly because I know y'all have gone through.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. I was talking to you on mute. Sorry about that. I said that, no, there are no questions, but I had a question, and that was to how do we give the students autonomy safely? That's when you said give the student autonomy. That question popped into my mind, and that's
yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit more into that. I have that coming up as well. But okay. Part of it is teaching them that, you know, we can install some software. So one great platform is GoGuardian, where the students can see, the teachers are seeing what they're doing, and teachers have control to close tabs and monitor chat and discussions. And what we do, we just kind of display it. So it's there that the students will actively see, oh, they can see everything we're doing. But if my student's on YouTube, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to close it. It means, did my student finish the work? Yes. Did my student do everything else? And what are they watching on YouTube? Maybe they just found, you know, a video on how to draw a cat. Is it detrimental to them? Is it distracting them? How is it affecting them? And sometimes they need that mental space to take a break if they finished everything they need to do and they're not hurting or harming anyone. But it's keeping them engaged. It's keeping them from having other behavioral issues, distracting the peers, wandering around, you know, getting into the wrong way. But they know that they can't go on the wrong YouTube link because you're watching them and you can see everything. You can close the tabs. So softwares like that can be really helpful, but we're going to go a little bit more into in terms of how we're designing our curriculum, and I'll touch back on the students in a bit. Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
Okay, so 1 year into the pandemic, what do we know? Okay, when I originally became all this research, it was obviously very wide and clear that there's all these challenges all around. You know, all of our schools had to go through these charts and decision trees and trying to make everything accommodating. But I mean, I soon learned that more than just the challenges, it's really the successes and really quick solutions that we can place to really move forward. So I'm not even on this. Like we've gone through the pandemic, hopefully getting in the clear soon. So we're just gonna move on from that, okay? And let's stay positive here. So solutions. Part of it is that teacher motivation. If the teacher is autonomous and he or she has the ability to really grow and experience, you know, their curriculum in the way that suits them and their students, you're able to have motivated teacher, which equates to motivated students. That is also collaborative capacity building. The Harvard study that I had looked at, it actually talked about how some schools made a very incredibly quick transition when it came to all this professional changes and tech changes. And that was most partly to the fact that they had PLCs within their schools. There were teacher leaders who championed the changes, and then those same teachers continued to collaboratively build outside of their network. And then they expanded and encouraged greater students' voice. So for myself, I went to Facebook, every Facebook teacher group I had, finding tips and resources, every Instagram teacher I follow. And then we have our ISNA community, and just continuously expanding that network outside of just my little greater Atlanta area and the teachers that we have. Our schools are small. We don't have large districts that we can go to for networks and support. So we need to go outside of our networks. But are the students getting that same ability to go outside of their networks? My students have been within each other since pre-K. It's a handful of 9 boys, and they've been together since pre-K, and they're the best friends, they're brothers. They're going to be best friends their entire life. But what else do they have? Are they getting that other insight outside of their network? And we need to figure out how can we use this technology to build a curriculum framework to give them that autonomy for the teachers, but also link that to our learning performance. This global initiative study, this is the one through Harvard, they looked at 98 different countries through the pandemic, and the largest area of concern was that student self-management. And for learning and future careers, the ability for a student to self-manage one's own learning journey will be increasingly important for an individual's ability to navigate life. You know, we coddle our kids, we hug them to death, we give them extra chances, we say, you know, oh, it's okay, you know, let's reflect on this and let's give you another chance, because they're, you know, these are Muslim little children. We want them to succeed, but we can't coddle them. We need to make them self-managing. We need to allow them to really develop that skill and be independent, not by, you know, micromanaging them and giving them that autonomy. So one example is allow students to design their own learning goals and plans. We do diagnostics and benchmarks every quarter. So as soon as we do that, I show my students the list of their results. Okay, here's areas of strengths, here are your areas of weakness. What is your learning goal? What are you planning on doing? Provide students with their own dashboards for their own progress. Give them increased amounts of access to resources and feedback to other students. We do a lot of self and peer assessment. So, you know, add comments on other peers' work. So they're looking at examples outside of their network, and then join them in with people from another country. There's a lot of different tools and websites where you can have students read other people's essays and comment on Padlets and comments. So giving them that ability to provide the students that support so that they can self-manage. When you design that into your learning, they will have that extra, you know, authentic feeling with it. It's not like, oh, I'm doing this because my teacher told me to do it. It's, well, I know I'm weak in this, so this is what I want to work on, and they will work harder for it. We need to make them self-managing. Same way the teachers are autonomous, you want to get autonomous students. You want autonomous learners. We're not this technology, it's not going away now. We looked at it, it was there in 2008, it's been there for years, it's not going anywhere. So when I dive in at our next steps, now we have this virtual toolkits. This is by no way complete. Okay, I'm just kind of throwing this on here. There are all these different tools that can be used. And it's like, it's not a new school or design, or it's not a new framework. The research shows that facilities' in-person relationships are actually not disrupted through innovation. A lot of people were, you know, in the pandemic, they're like, we're not getting the socialization, we're sitting in a bubble. But when you've already had that interactions, and that's not going to be disrupted, whether you're face-to-face or online, because innovations can orchestrate this new choreography of opportunities across school communities. Half my students have Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram. I have one student who made themselves a LinkedIn because he decided to launch his own app. Okay, so there are these innovations there, and they're going to use these social media networks regardless. So it's not, I don't want you guys to think about, you know, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so hard, I'm gonna have to go and add all of these tools. Nope, it's not more work. It's just thinking about it's considered smarter work. Okay, use what your students like and make it work for you. Make design principles to embrace and trusting ties that are already there. So you'll have a very approach to learning and connecting. Once you've connected with your students on their social networks, you know, and you know them, you know what you can do to kind of reach out to them. So, for example, I'm looking at my audience of wonderful educators here, and I'm thinking that Ramadan is coming in a week. And even having not talked to most of you, I know a lot of you may be either in preparations for Ramadan, preparations trying to go and relax during spring break, either that, or trying to figure out how to get back to your classrooms and take all this back and put it together. So a little incentive using my virtual toolkit. So we have the spinner and generator. Okay, this is one example on here, random spinners and generators. If I was to pop in, if I was to say, I'm going to take your names for the people who shared something in the chat, and I'm going to put your name in a generator, and you will get a Ramadan prize in the mail. How many of you would feel more willing to be engaged in the lesson? I saw some more things come through the chat. I will, yeah, because that will seek that audience. So this audience, I know you guys would want something for Ramadan possibly, and knowing my audience, I'm going to tailor towards that, right? So similarly, if you know your students are into technology, if you're going to ban it, close it, turn it off in this classroom and say, I don't want any of this, they're going to go home and do it anyways. They're going to be on electronics all day. Use it to your advantage, okay? So what can we do? What tools have you guys used? So now, instead of using the word tips, I'm going to say we will share a butterflies. What butterflies have you found to be successful? When you share a tip, somebody could use it, they might not use it. You don't know what's happening to it. But a butterfly goes out in the world, and that's kind of where we go back to the butterfly effect. The actual scientific theory says that, a butterfly flapping its wing in one part of the world can create a tornado in another part of the world. You never know what it's going to create. So what's your butterfly that you would like to share with us? Have you found any tools to be successful? I have a link that I'm going to share with all my curated resources. So you'll have all of that and you can go through, my tips. But I really want to go through and give you guys a chance to also share some of your tips. We've discussed that it's not a one fit kind of all thing. This butterfly effect, this technological metamorphosis, it's a series of small actions. It's allowing you to be autonomous, being brave to, speak up, give yourself that mental space, teaching self-management, building connections. These are not new terms, but the idea how when you put all of this together, it's not a technological takeover. It's just a gradual metamorphosis into a framework that allows educators to explore relationships that they've built with their students by choosing the technology to match their students' needs. So you're going to use your relationships and you're going to use their actual, self-management that they have to choose the tech that works for them. That's how it's metamorphosized. That the technology is still here, it's not going anywhere. And you don't have to use it all. You just choose one little thing. So this is supposed to be a little bit of hands-on now. I want you guys now, I didn't actually get to see how many educators or how many teachers versus admins we have here, but I see most everyone are teachers. I'm going through, yes, most everyone's are teachers. So I want you to choose one change today, okay? Think about either something that you've already done that you could redo if you were to reteach it in another class, or an upcoming lesson that you have upcoming now. And we still have about 30 minutes. And maybe we'll save some time at the end for some Q&A, but you're welcome to chime in and throw your questions in the chat as well. What is one lesson that you can add a tech tool to it? So when I use spinners and generators, I'll use them for a week. I will use them every single day until I know that I can use them efficiently, to where I'm not constantly retyping the student's name or I'm not messing them up. I will practice that one technological tool until I know it down. When I did Nearpod, I used Nearpod for a solid month before I even tried going to Flipgrid or Pear Deck or any of these other platforms, exploring them. So choose one. It's not meant to be overwhelming. It's meant to see what do your students like and finding something that worked for them. Another example, when I look at Padlet, for example, Padlet gives you the opportunity to have a kind of a big giant Post-it wall for your students. I teach middle schoolers. They don't like people knowing what they say and who say. They're genuinely super scared of speaking out in public and, people judging them. And Padlet is a great opportunity because they don't have to write their name. No one needs to know who made that comment. And I can blur out the name if I want to blur it out. I can hide it from public view. So they're able to share their learning without feeling judged. So I know that's a good tool for my students. But I know that if I used discussion forums for my students, that might not work, because then they can see which students made the comments. right? So I'm not going to use discussion forums for my class because that's not the proper tech for my class. What do you think works for you guys? Okay, I'm hopping on into the chat. Oral presentations, Flipgrid, awesome. Okay, well, I want you guys to take some time and choose one, like actually choose one, see what change you would make, and then share it with me. Does anyone have any butterfly effect stories as well of a change that something that they did that they felt made a difference later in education, or somebody came back and you saw the effect? Those are always fun to hear. They're very like chicken soup for the soul type stories. Have them be a co-host and drag the names of US presidents to their birth dates. I excel Nearpod quizzes. So yeah, that's the thing. You guys are already using all of these tech tools. And the whole point of this is to understand that it's not meant to be overwhelming. And the way that technology has metamorphosized, you don't know which one is going to work. You don't know how your students are going to respond to different ones. So it's about being brave enough to try and taking that risk as an educator. Someone, when I was talking about this with another educator, actually Sister Patricia, she had mentioned how our religion gives us that same kind of autonomy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave us, here's what you need to do. You need to pray, you need to believe. And there's some rules, but the rest of it and how we choose to practice, there are options. We have the ability to think for ourselves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us that. So why are we as educators not taking that for ourselves? Why are we not saying this is a standard and this is how I'm going to teach it? I'm not going to do this written out lesson plan that's written in the textbook because that doesn't work for you. That's just what somebody else wrote. You're not passionate about it. So your students won't be passionate about it. Come up with lessons that work for your students. Let's see. Somebody says some of our teachers went a bit overload trying to use too many tools. It became overwhelming, and the students as well. If I could go back in time, I would choose a few tools and ask the teachers to explore them or put the limits on the number of tools that a teacher can use. I agree completely. Definitely stick to a few tools. And I have used a lot of them, but never all together in that type of format. And also not from, I won't go from Nearpod the first one day and then Pear Deck the next day and Flipgrid the next day if my students don't even know what those are. Those are unrecognizable formats to them, and it does become overwhelming. So definitely always, sharpen that saw, be like Abe Lincoln, perfect that one thing first before moving on to something else. Let's see. Box of lies. I love the idea of trying box of lies. They can discuss the things that happen in a novel and slip in one line. Oh, I love that.
That sounds like fun.
I've actually never done that for a novel. I always use that for social studies, but that would be fun. Oh, now I feel like going upstairs and bothering my children. Doing that with them. I'm having my older son, he's been reading stories of the Sahabas, and right now he's reading about, I think Uthman is the book he's reading, Uthman alayhi salam. So just kind of like, hey, tell me which ones are true and which ones are not, to see if he really learned it. I like that. Okay. We were talking about dealing with the challenges. Are we going to talk about dealing with the challenges of classrooms where some of the students are online and others are in class? So we did see a little bit, in terms of the challenges. And that's kind of where I was like, we have gone through a lot of that. And I wanted to move forward through some of those solutions, but I'm going to go right back to that slide real quick. Okay. So, when you have some students online, some not, obviously there's those situations with, are you sure that you're providing an equitable experience? Are you sure that the people at home have that support, and those that don't? The ones at home, they might not have that intrinsic effort, intrinsic motivation to really show up, be on the computer. So those issues are still there. And those aren't going away. But the bigger part about that is if the teacher is autonomous, if the teacher can make those students self-manage by giving them that intrinsic motivation, a lot of those barriers go away. A lot of the research that I read showed that those students, the ones that are in Silicon Valley, those were the lowest performing in their counties. There were 3 teachers, elementary, another one secondary, another one was high school. And the counties that they were in were at 2 to 21% poverty rates. But their students scored the highest in their state. And that was because they allowed them to choose their own goals. They allowed them to see, hey, look, I know you're having trouble right now, you child at home, your mom, there's 4 of you, or you're moving across, you might have internet issues. You tell me what you want to work on. These are the 5 standards we need to hit before the end of the year. What are you going to focus on? Let your student have that control. We have our mini lessons and we can still teach our content, but allowing the student to take that next action, giving them that choice, helps take away so much of that barrier, especially when you have those students at home who are struggling. And knowing that, it takes away. It is a very difficult transition. Our school right now, we were fully online at OFALA, and now we've switched to, we have about 40% of students on site. We have 60% online. And then the teachers are actually teaching some of their classes concurrent. So we have tech setups where the students are teaching the online students and on-site students at the same time. And some of those issues are still going to be there, where you're going to have students who don't show up to class, students who are having internet issues, internet lagging, and things like that. And the bigger part about that is, you know what, at the end of the day, if that student learned that standard, if they're motivated to show up to class and they're learning, that's what we need to look at. If they're motivated to succeed. Sometimes that student will show up 5 times and they'll get knocked out of their Zoom 5 times because the technology won't be working, and it does become an issue. It's overwhelming for them. But at the end of the time, did that student have that self-motivation to learn, to show up to class? Yes, that student did. So that student will succeed. That's what we're looking at. Is your student engaged enough to self-manage their learning? So we need to get them to self-manage. And that's kind of the end result of a lot of this, is that use the technology to get them to manage. If we weren't able to get them on that Zoom call that day because the technology kept knocking off, do a quick check-in, text them. Your student is going to have that technology anyways. If that technology is there, why are we not using it? Why are we pushing back and saying, oh no, I can't message my student on Snapchat. That's not appropriate. They're all doing it anyways. They're all messaging each other. So find a way to reach out to your student to make sure that, they're okay and they're feeling confident. The mode is difficult and it's not easy, and if anyone wants to type in the chat of things that have worked well for you when switching to concurrent and online and going between hybrid, please do share in the chat. But part of it is just having that grace, allowing your students to really have the opportunity to try, just give them that freedom to try. I don't think we need to be as rigid as sometimes we think, and just use that technology to your advantage. A lot of it, I have a student who showed up to class. Oh my gosh, it was a funny story. He showed up to class and I hear waves in the background. I see it was like really shiny, couldn't see. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm on the beach. I was like, you're on the beach? He's like, yeah, I'm in Hawaii. My parents brought me to Hawaii. So I'm on the beach. I'm like, if you're in Hawaii, why are you in class? You're sitting on the beach and you're not relaxing on the beach? He's like, no, I had to show up to class because I wanted to make sure I have this partner presentation. I didn't want to let my partner down. And I'm sitting there thinking, if that was me, I would have called in sick. I would have said, I'm so sorry, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to go enjoy myself on that beach. But that student was motivated to come and be there, regardless of whatever issues he had. And we need to just make sure we keep doing that, allowing them that personal sense of belonging and inclusion. He was connected to his classmates and he felt the need to make sure he wasn't going to let that partner down. So having that, that space for that social development is also very important.
That's also character development, Sophia. That shows that good character, that character of responsible. He's responsible.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's good character development too.
And that's what a lot of this ends, in the end focuses on. A lot of this is looking at how less is more. Choosing those power standards, those quick focus activities that we can do, and one or two tools, not really trying to overwhelm ourselves. I know back in the day, it would just be worksheet after worksheet, or you look at a math paper with 50 questions or a grammar sheet with 25 grammar exercises. Do we need all of that? Are we able to show that we learned it in just 5 or 10 exercises versus 20, and then maybe come up with a more engaging way for students to show some experiential practice of that grammar exercise or that math exercise by them making a joke and making math jokes or something else? There's a lot more, and we know that gamification works. We know that competition works. We know that anything that even seems slightly fun for them will work. So take away, from what seems very ordinary, and this actually isn't that hard, when you look at it. A lot of it is just one or two simple little things that we can just build in to show the students that we trust them and, we believe them. As long as you make them feel that you trust them, they will, they're going to start to self-manage. I'm going to try to make sure I have enough time for some more Q&A towards the end. But I just don't want to overstate our potential influence. We have a responsibility. It's not like our students and our readers are hanging on to our every word. And it's a basic truth, that a lot of us just kind of forget, and some of us don't ever learn. They're going to forget a lot of what we have to say. It's going to go over their heads. Nonetheless, we have the responsibility to put this into the stream of human ideas and activity and our best insights and understandings and instructions. We have that responsibility to use what we learned to build autonomous learners that can self-manage. It's up to us to kind of motivate these other teachers around us to be change makers, to build them up and give them room to grow. A lot of this is having that open mind. I see Cassandra can't hear me. Can everyone else still hear me? Okay. I'm not sure what happened, Cassandra. Okay. Awesome. And I know the recording will be available as well if anyone missed out on information. This is just some further reading. If you want more detailed information about the research studies, my contact information is there. And the link tree has a lot of cultivated resources that I found that will help you. A lot of them are very quick and simple tech tools that you can use in your classroom. I'm going to keep this up for a few minutes. And Patricia, we can try to get some Q&A. I think we have about 15 minutes to discuss and allow everyone to kind of chime in and share their thoughts and their stories.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Sophia. So if you have any questions, please open up your mic and ask a question, or just write it in the chat and I'll read it out. Or I think Sophia can also see the chat as well. But
yes, I did just open it up. Patricia, do you know when the recordings will be posted?
The recordings will be posted, give it a week, I would think, but we can find out in the closing session. I'll text someone and ask if this is an exact date, but I would say give it a week. It doesn't usually take long for them to post the recordings.
So I'm going to share one of my butterfly effect stories. And if anyone wants to share, I'd love to hear it. The very first year I ever stepped into a classroom, I was 17 and I was doing dual credit classes and randomly had all my classes in the evening. So I applied as a substitute position at our Islamic school. Just, there was a program at the mosque downstairs. I was like, oh, let me just walk upstairs, apply as a sub, get some extra money in the daytime. I'm a college student, go out for coffee, something like that. And I went, went to apply for a sub and I got offered a position right away. And I have a student that kind of just really used to cling to me. And I don't remember what I did. I'm saying that now. I just remember going in with a big bright smile every day, thinking that I know better and I'm awesome. I'm this first year teacher. I learned so much in teacher school. And I don't remember what I did. But 15 years later, just a couple of months ago, this student sent me a message saying, Salamu alaikum. I looked you up on Facebook and I just became a teacher and I'm teaching Islamic studies out in India. And I wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. And I was sitting there, what did I do? I remember the student. I remember that he was smart and funny and charismatic and just like a little fourth grader, but that's all I remember. But subhanAllah, whatever I did, whatever small thing I might have said, made him remember me 15 years later. And he's sitting there typing up all these du'as for me. And alhamdulillah, now he's actually teaching my older son Quran because he went and got certified and went to, Medina University and here and there. So he's actually my son's Quran teacher. But that's where it really shows me, that butterfly effect, that I was using technology back then, but whatever one or two little things you do can make a huge impact on your students. So don't feel overwhelmed by it. Try to think about it in a way that, you want your students to be positive, strong, motivated learners. And you want to make sure that they have the tools they have to succeed. So choose one tool, choose one thing that you are going to do, one takeaway, that will really make a difference for them. And go with that. Don't overwhelm yourselves. And your students, you will see that they will get more and more excited. They will get more and more engaged. Does anyone else have a butterfly effect story? Come on, y'all are so amazing. I love hearing these stories. I'm gonna write a book one day, inshallah. All of our chicken soup for the Muslim private school soul.
Well, I do have a story. We gotta say about 40 years ago. Anyway, I was volunteering at an Islamic school and this little girl was having a lot of trouble and I was tutoring her and trying to guide her. And then I saw her in the University of UCI. They were having a special program for a meeting for Muslim youth. And I hear this girl screaming across the courtyard, my name. So I turn around and I look and this beautiful girl was running up to me and says, and her mother was not too far behind. She goes, Sister Cassandra, do you remember me? And I go, Aisha, because she had, her face didn't seem to change that much. And she goes, see, Mom, she remembers me. And then she told me that I'm a teacher because of you, how you were caring. And that just broke my heart. I'll never forget that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, sister. That's beautiful.
A beautiful story. Thank you, Sister Cassandra.
I enjoyed this program. I thought it was just going to be all technical and I'm still trying to learn. And then you make it so easy, like, oh, no, we have all these other things and you don't have to do everything.
Definitely not. And, some of the basics are technical, but you're already doing that. You already know how to use Zoom, right? Or, Google Meets, you already know how to share your screen. So then choose one thing. If we want to choose one thing right now, what's something? Let's see, we could do virtual field trips. So my students, the most recent one we've just started doing are the Google Earth, just going on Google Earth. I used to use that years ago with my own kids just for fun. We would Google random our cousins' houses and my parents' house, and they would zoom in on their streets to see their grandparents' car because grandparents live very far away, and they used to have fun going on Google Earth. So we do virtual field trips when we're a place in a different country, or we're learning about just something else, and then they can go through Google Earth. And it's just a refreshing change for them. There's so many different applications for it, but it's not something complicated. And all of these tools are not complicated. It's just choosing one quick thing. Has anyone tried having a student-led morning meeting?
Yeah, we do that in our school in City of Knowledge. They pick a child every day. Actually, they have a schedule and they can sign up for it, and they lead the prayer, they lead the who's going to read Quran, and then they do a little agenda. So each of them are taking part in the school, interest in what's going on around them.
I love that. I see MRF schools said that they've also done morning meetings, student-led. Are they still with us? They would like to share, highlight how they've done it. I don't see them here anymore. One thing that I really like about the student-led morning meeting is that, you know, outside of the general framework that we give them, when you think as an educator, you know we have to fill our standards. We should have some sort of way to get feedback from the students. We should have to give feedback to them, some sort of way to assess the students. When we're doing student-led meetings, we could give them a very basic structure. Hey, make sure we talk about the agenda for the day. Let's make sure we have a dua, and, you know, give them a little bit of room to grow. You can choose something, maybe a current event or a news. So I give my students the CNN 10 link, and they'll watch 10 minutes of CNN, and then they choose one story they want to highlight. There's 5 or 6 stories, but I'm not going to say I want you to talk only about this and completely write it out for them. They choose what they think will be relevant, what they want to share. Sometimes my students will add in a joke, or they'll add in memes. Say, what's your meme for what's your mood for the, you know, the day? And it's just changes their entire experience, because then I have students sending me emails. Can I please lead it tomorrow? Can I please do it tomorrow? And I promise I'll do extra work, and I'll do this, I'll do this. And they get motivated because they want to have that. We just started morning adhkar and afternoon adhkar, and our school has been recording YouTube videos for our students. So in the morning, we have it projected in the classroom, and the online students will open up the YouTube link and they listen to the morning du'as. And in the afternoon, there's adhan with some adhkar as well. And the students are barbating, you know, like constantly messaging these teachers producing it. Please give me the opportunity. I'm going to fix my Quran recitation, and then I'll make sure that I'm there. I'm going to look really nice, and I'll get a new virtual background for this presentation, because they want to do it. You know, at the end of the day, the students want to shine. They want the opportunity to feel included. And I think as soon as you give that students that give, that's what changes everything. You know, at the end of the day, don't we all want that as humans, or even as Muslims, as people, as moms, as spouses, as sisters, as friends? You know, you want somebody to kind of give you that little pat on your back, or to say, oh, hey, let's go out for coffee. Let's do, you know, you want that social connection. You want people to reach out to you. So it's about reaching your students in their ways. So if you know your student if you know your student loves, he's like a really funny guy and he loves jokes, he's going to now write out jokes for your Arabic class in Arabic, and he will love it. But they're all going to be, you know, he'll type them up online, or he'll make a recorded video of jokes, and he's doing it in Arabic class. Make it so that the technology works for them. It chooses their best qualities, things that, you know, make your students shine, but use it for them. I'm reading Sister Fatima's comment. She said, student told me you mean the world to me. She started to like math and never felt that way before. She was in 5th grade last year. Before all of those years, she could never think that she could be good at math. Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Sister, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, I want to share something. I'm working as a teacher for MEA, Makki Education Academy. I'm teaching first graders math, and my own son is a student of mine. And when I'm home, he's not like paying attention and all of that. He's like thinking me as a mommy. And then once he's in my class, when I'm teaching him online, he's the most disciplined guy in the whole class. And then he performs his tasks like trying to impress me all the time, like 1, 2, 3, go. And then when I come back home, I ask like, Mukarram, are you seriously like that? So he goes like, I love you as a teacher more than as a mommy. So that's like butterfly effect. Come on, how can you do that? So it's like I feel like two-way, like being a mother, it's a different, feeling. But when I talk to him as a teacher, he's something different. Like he's entirely a different personality, and that impresses me so hard. Like, but he's done with his homeworks, he's done with his classwork. He's so good at presentation. Like everything is like on top. So
That, and that shows you the power of a teacher.
right,
When you have that influence on him and you're giving him that opportunity to shine in front of his peers, and he wants to make you feel proud.
yeah,
He really wants to not only shine and make himself look good, but he wants to make you look good.
right.
So, you have that extra little bit of motivation coming from him there as
Definitely,
well.
definitely. Alhamdulillah, I feel so blessed about it.
Whereas I've always been scared to teach my own kids. Next year, my son is going into 7th, and I'm teaching 7th at my school this year. So I'm kind of like, I don't know how, if, my school is going to keep me where I am. If I put my child in, my child would be in my class. I'm the only ELA teacher there at the school. So I'm trying to figure out how that would work. I've always been very scared of that. Any other questions, comments, final thoughts before you all go to spring breaks or back to schools, depending on where you are in the country? Takeaways that you'll take back to school next week, or takeaways you take back to your administrators. I noticed mine did not hop in, and I'm actually happy because she would have seen that all I said was let teachers be autonomous and let us think for ourselves. But alhamdulillah, I am very, very lucky to be at a school where my administrators allow us that autonomy. Alhamdulillah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining in. And I really appreciate the opportunity to get to share my research with you. Inshallah, they will all be available really soon. Feel free to contact me for any other questions or details you may have.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, thank you. I made us. I from based on the response that I hear from your and seeing in the chat, the mere fact of saying we don't have to do all of this at one time is such a relief for us as classroom teachers to know that this technology can be scary for some of us, and in it they have so many opportunities and so many things to do. And are you using this? Are you using that? And we can just pick one, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you validating we can do one or two or just a few, and we don't have to know all of these different technology tools. We can just do the ones that fit our personality and our students' personality. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Where everybody, we have going to the session in 1 minute. They're starting with the concluding session. I put the evaluation sheet. I'm sorry, not the sheet. The evaluation link into the chat. I can put it in again. I think, yeah, there it is again. There it is again. It disappeared. It's in the chat now. Please use that to evaluate our sessions for today. And we really appreciate you coming to our to this session. May Allah bless you with a successful weekend, or should I say successful week. And thank you for joining us for the 22nd ISNA Education Forum. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamu
Well,
alaikum.
salam. Thank you very much. Thank you for your